We live in a world that celebrates perfection. Perfect lives on social media, perfect smiles, perfect success stories. But have you ever stopped and wondered, what if perfection isn't real? What if the most beautiful things in life are born not from perfection, but from imperfection? This is the story of a potter, and a broken pot that changed the way he saw life forever. In a small village surrounded by green hills and flowing rivers, there lived an old potter named Arav. He was known for creating the most beautiful clay pots in the entire region. People from neighboring towns would travel miles just to buy one of his creations. Every pot he made looked flawless, smooth, shiny, perfectly round. But inside, Arav was tired. He had spent his entire life chasing perfection, shaping, reshaping, throwing away any pot that wasn't flawless. Every tiny crack, every uneven curve, he saw them as failures. One evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, Arav sat by his wheel, exhausted and frustrated. He had been working on a special order, a pair of pots for the royal garden. But as he lifted one of them, he saw a faint crack running down the side. Angry, he shouted, "Why can't I ever make something perfect?" He threw the pot aside. It rolled to the corner of his workshop and rested there, broken, unwanted, forgotten. Days passed. Arav continued working, always striving for flawless perfection. But no matter how careful he was, small cracks would always appear. One morning, as he carried water from the river, he noticed something strange. The path he walked daily, dry and dusty, now had little green shoots growing along one side. Tiny wildflowers danced in the breeze, following the trail of spilled water. Arav stopped. He looked down at the pot in his hand, the same cracked pot he had thrown away days earlier. The crack in the pot allowed water to leak out slowly as he walked. And that water had given life to the flowers along the path. He stood there silently, staring at the beauty his flaw had created. That moment changed him forever. That evening, Arav sat beside the river with the cracked pot. He ran his fingers over the imperfection, smiling softly. For years, he whispered, "I cursed every crack. But I never realized, the cracks are what make life bloom." From that day forward, Arav's work changed. He stopped throwing away imperfect pots. Instead, he began creating designs around their flaws. Turning cracks into patterns, chips into textures, and rough edges into art. Soon, his pots looked different from everyone else's. They weren't perfect anymore, but they were alive, full of soul, full of stories. People who came to buy his pot started saying, "There's something special about your work, Arav. They feel real." Arav would just smile and say, "That's because they are real. Just like us." Years later, when Arav grew old, a young apprentice came to learn from him. He was talented but impatient, obsessed with perfection, just like Arav once was. One day, the young man smashed a pot in frustration and said, "Master, how can you work with these imperfect pieces? They ruin everything." Arav smiled and handed him the cracked pot that had started it all. "Take this," he said. "Fill it with water and walk down to the river. Then come back." The apprentice did as he was told. When he returned, the master asked, "What did you see along the path?" The boy hesitated. "Flowers, master. Beautiful wildflowers growing where the water dripped." Arav nodded. "That's the beauty of imperfection. While you were cursing the flaw, the crack was creating life." The young apprentice looked at the old pot, its crack now lined with golden resin that shimmered in the sunlight. He finally understood. You see, in life, we're all like those pots, carrying cracks, scars, and imperfections. We try so hard to hide them, to appear flawless to the world. But those cracks, they tell our story. They're the proof that we've lived, we've tried, we've failed, and we've grown. Your broken places are not your shame, they are your strength. They show where the light entered you. Just like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, it's not perfect. It stands tilted, yet it's one of the most admired landmarks in the world. Why? Because its imperfection made it unforgettable. The Japanese have a beautiful tradition called Kintsugi. The art of repairing broken pottery with gold. They believe that when something has suffered damage and has a history, it becomes more beautiful. Maybe that's how we should see ourselves too. Not as broken, but as beautifully repaired. Think about your own life for a moment. That time you failed, didn't it make you wiser? That heartbreak, didn't it teach you empathy? That rejection, didn't it push you to grow stronger? Every experience, even the painful ones, shape you into who you are today. And that's what makes you unique. If life were perfect, you'd never learn patience. If people were perfect, you'd never learn forgiveness. If you were perfect, you'd never learn compassion. So maybe, perfection isn't the goal. Maybe the real goal is growth. Ariv spent the rest of his life teaching young potters not to fear mistakes. Before he died, he carved one final message on the wall of his workshop. It read, "Perfection is lifeless. It's the cracks that let the soul breathe." When his students found it, they cried, not out of sadness, but because they finally understood the wisdom their master had lived by. So, if you ever feel broken, if you ever feel like your cracks make you less worthy, remember this story. You are not meant to be perfect. You are meant to be real. To learn, to grow, to love, to heal, again and again. Every scar, every mistake, every tear. They're not your weaknesses. They're your art. Because nothing is perfect. And that's what makes life so perfectly beautiful.